What is up, everyone? And we're back with another episode of The Fantasy Football Addicts. I'm your host, Dawson, joined by Nick Webb, as usual. Wyatt is not going to be here today, sadly. He is actually still feeling kind of bad from his wisdom teeth surgery, so he had to take some pain meds. He has a little bit of a headache, so he's going to take this one off.
He's
But
on
we
the
still,
IR.
yeah, he's on the IR. But we still have a great episode planned for you today. Today, we're going to be going over our busts for 2020 fantasy football. So we're going to have two people each who we think are going to either perform below their ADP or perform way worse than last year. And we're going to explain why we think that in each person. So you ready for this, Nick?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
So before we get started, don't forget to go follow us on Twitter at the FF Addicts. If you like this video, at the end of it, go down, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Anything you can do to help us, we'd love it. So
Greatly appreciate it.
So with that being said, I'm going to start with my first bust of the year, and it's going to be Aaron Jones, running back for the Green Bay Packers. Sorry, Nick, as a Packers fan, I know that one kind of hurts for you. And I'm not saying that Aaron Jones is not going to be a viable fantasy starter this year. I think, however, he is going to perform below his ADP. He is currently going as RB13 in PPR leagues right now, according to Fantasy Pros. And I just don't think – I mean, it's not that he's going to maybe perform super far below this ADP. To me, it's more that he's going to finish way – I think a lot of people are still thinking he's going to have the fantasy production they did last year. And that's just not going to happen this year, in my opinion. One of the reasons I don't think that's going to happen is I think he is in store. I mean, you hear this one a lot. He is in store for a lot of touchdown regression this year. He finished with 19 total touchdowns last season. And I just don't think that is even close to repeatable with the addition of – my second point is the addition of A.J. Dillon. The Packers show that they're not 100% confident in his ability, and Williams is still there. So there's kind of a three-headed backfield now. I'm not sure how much of Aaron Jones' workload that A.J. Dillon's going to take, but I do just think this shows that a kind of a lack of – they had so many opportunities to go for a wide receiver for Rodgers or just some sort of pass-catching weapon, and they chose A.J. Dillon. I think that shows that they just don't have confidence in Aaron Jones for whatever reason. I disagree with that, but I just think they don't believe in it for some reason. So I also think that Rodgers is going to, after this draft, I think he's going to be in kind of like a screw you mode to everyone. He's just going to go out and I think he's going to just throw the ball with his hair on fire. I don't think they're going to run the ball as efficiently. I think it's going to be more of a Rodgers show. Rodgers, Devontae Adams, he's just going to try. Rodgers is going to do everything he can to throw the ball as much as possible to try to show that he's worth building around. And he's not done yet. So I think that Aaron Jones is going to still be a viable running back, going to be an RB2. I just think he's not going to perform nearly as good as last year. Too many people have this misconception he's going to be just like he was last year, and that is not going to happen. So that's why he's one of my busts this year. Nick, what do you think about that?
So I don't think you're too far off. I mean, I wouldn't consider him a bust in my opinion because, I mean, I am a Packers fan and I do hope that he is the greatest running back of all time, but I don't think that's possible at this point. And they're drafted A.J. Dillon. You're right. I see A.J. Dillon getting all the work on 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, 3rd and inches, goal line work. I just don't think Aaron Jones will be doing that. I was watching them last year. The way they worked last year with the Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones is they would trade off drives. So Aaron Jones would start the game, play the entire drive, and then the next drive, Jamal Williams would come out and he would play the entire drive. I see the same exact thing happening again where he's going to get half the drives. Basically, I see A.J. Dillon coming in 3rd short, 3rd and inches, 3rd and 1, and he's going to take all those away. And I don't think A.J. Dillon is that great of a talent, but I still think that he is going to take some snaps away from Aaron Jones. I think you're kind of right on the Aaron Rodgers thing. I have no idea what's going on with that situation at all. Like, I feel like Aaron Rodgers is an absolute wimp for not walking into the GM's office the second after that first night of the draft and say, hey, trade me to the Bears so I can torch you twice a year. But he didn't do that. He's going to stay around. It really sucks because an hour before the draft, he was on the Pat McAfee show and said, hey, I want to play into my early 40s and I want to stay in Green Bay forever. And the first thing they do after they hear that is draft another quarterback. So he will be throwing the ball like his freaking head's on fire. He's going to look just like he did when he was 25. He's going to audible out of every run play he could possibly do just to throw a freaking Hail Mary on 1st and 10. So I don't love Aaron Jones. I don't want him to bust. I want him to be RB1, but I don't think that's possible.
Right. I just think, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to have too big of a chip on his shoulder this season, and I just don't see the way Aaron Jones pays off like he did last year. So, who is your first bust candidate of this year?
So my first one, you're absolutely going to disagree with me, but it's actually Robert Woods. So hear me out. I know you're really high on Robert Woods this year. Let me tell you why I'm not. So first of all, he only had 2 touchdowns last year. That is just not good enough for where he's being drafted. He's currently being drafted as the 19th receiver and 46th overall. If you're spending a top four rounds in your draft on Robert Woods, that's an absolute shame. Like, you should not be drafting him in the 4th round. Like, that is not where he should be going. He should not be wide receiver 19. There's some receivers behind him that I would take ahead of him. So another thing that I would like to point out, I don't know, I mean, you have to take this with a grain of salt, but Robert Woods only played 2 games last year when Brandon Cooks was out of the lineup. In those 2 games, he had 16 points and 6 points. I mean, that's a very, very, very small sample size. So you have to take that with a
Yeah.
grain of salt. I don't think that's good enough. I'm expecting at least double or 20 points whenever the number one receiver in that offense was gone. This is the huge thing that really scares me, and this is probably why the biggest reason why I'm not high on Robert Woods this year. Last year he had 139 targets. That sounds great, right?
Right.
He only came down with 90 catches. He caught 67% of his targets. And I just don't think that's enough. How many more targets can he possibly get? I feel like 139 is probably his peak. I mean, maybe he can go up to 149 or 150. Like, I just
That's
don't
100
see him.
catches.
I don't see him that's a stretch. I don't see him as a 150 target type guy in the NFL. I just don't see that, especially with Higbee taking a bigger role this year. And you've said it before, they're going to do that. They're going to run the 2 tight end sets. I just don't see that. I just don't see him getting 150 targets with that. To me, I don't see them doing the 2 tight end sets all year long as well, but when that happens, man, Cooper Kupp is going to be in the slot. And I trust Goff to throw it to the slot more often than he won't. And I think that Kupp is going to greatly benefit from Brandon Cooks being gone more than Robert Woods. Robert Woods is going to step up in there, be the Brandon Cooks of the last 2 years. And I just don't I see him trying to be a deep threat. And with the deep threat, you're going to have a safety waiting over the top for you. And him in a corner and a safety, I just don't see him winning those very often compared to Brandon Cooks doing it. So I just want to show you who's sandwiched in between or behind him and in front of him. So in front of him is Courtland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown. Those are the 3 players directly ahead of him.
Okay.
I would take all 3 of those guys over Robert Woods. The Sutton one is probably the one I'm on the fence about, but not the point right now. The 3 people behind him, Lockett, Metcalf, and Chark. I love those guys, all 3 of them, and I would absolutely smash those players before I pick Robert Woods. And then there's some players later in the draft that I think I would rather have than Robert Woods. Jarvis Landry is one of them. He was a very good receiver last year. He's currently being drafted as wide receiver 29, 69th overall. Tyler Boyd's another guy. I mean, I am a little bit biased. I love Tyler Boyd a lot, have for about 3-4 years now. He's being drafted as wide receiver 31, and his overall draft is 73. And Hollywood Brown is kind of a question mark for me, but I think I would rather have him than Robert Woods as well, because Hollywood Brown's going to be the only option outside of Mark Andrews, and Hollywood Brown's being drafted at wide receiver 30 and overall 70.
I totally disagree that he's going to bust this year. I think he's going to outperform his ADP. I saw a stat on Twitter. Every single year that Robert Woods has been in the NFL, he has outperformed his ADP by like 10 spots every single year. So I think he is going to do that once again. And I don't think I would take any of those receivers except for Calvin Ridley and maybe A.J. Brown over Robert Woods. All the guys you listed, I just like Robert Woods better. I think he's going to see more targets with Brandon Cooks gone. And I think he is obviously due for touchdown positive touchdown regression, I don't see a way in which he can bust. I think he's the number one target, and I think he's better than Cooper Kupp, especially if they're running two tight end personnel. I think he's going to perform on the outside way better than Cooper Kupp will. But I mean, we disagree on that one for sure. I do think you made good points about some of the things you said. I just don't think that there's any way that he busts, just like you don't think Aaron Jones will bust possibly, and just like you won't think that the next guy I have is going to bust, and it's going to be Leonard Fournette. And he's going right now as the RB15 in PPR drafts. And once again, I don't think he's going to finish super low below this ADP. I just don't think, compared to last year, which he went RB7, he finished RB7, there is no way he finishes anywhere close to RB7. And here's why. I think he's going to finish around RB18, back in RB2, 18 to 20. So whether or not you consider that a bust is up to you, but I do think he's going to not even come close last year, and here's why. Huge amounts of his last year production was in the receiving game, and that is something that we had never seen from Leonard Fournette. He had 100 targets and 76 catches last year and 522 yards. That is 122 of his total 265 PPR points. That is almost half of his entire points scored was just through the receiving game. In his prior 2 seasons, he combined for a total of like 50 catches. So he outperformed in one season catch-wise his entire career previous leading up to that. There's no way he does it again because the Jaguars, one, bring in Chris Thompson, who is a pass-catching specialist, and Jay Gruden as their offensive coordinator. And Jay Gruden and Chris Thompson have some sort of brotherhood bond. There's like a video of them crying together in the locker room when he got cut or something like that. Like
they were crying when Jay Gruden got fired.
Yeah, so they're like really good friends. He loves Chris Thompson, and he got tons of use when he was there in Washington. I think him being there and Jay Gruden being offensive coordinator is going to just completely diminish Leonard Fournette's receiving game, and that's going to cut his total production. Not to mention they add a mobile quarterback for the entire season now with Minshew. Take out Nick Foles for part. They split time last year. Now they have the entire 16 games with Minshew. That's less dump offs, less checkdowns, and more of the rushing game going to Minshew. Maybe even some of the touchdown upside going to Minshew on the goal line. So his passing volume altogether is going to be so much lower, and that is the only reason I have him as low as I do is because so much of his production. He wasn't a very efficient running back on the ground. So if you go just to his on the ground numbers like he was in previous years, he is going to be lucky to finish as a back end RB2. And I don't think there's any way he finishes close to RB7 like he did last year.
So I think you're absolutely nuts for that take. First of all, Leonard Fournette, obviously the Jags did not pick up his 5th-year option. This will be his last year in Jacksonville, and he has expressed interest in a trade. But here's the thing. Here's why I think Leonard Fournette is going to be the most insane running back you will see this year, and it's because of this is his contract year. This upcoming free agent running back draft class is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Aaron Jones is one, Leonard Fournette's one, Marlon Mack is one, Kenyon Drake is one. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. But there's Alvin Kamara, another one. Yeah. So these, like, if you want a job in 2021 as a running back, you better have one of the greatest seasons of your life. And I think Leonard Fournette knows this, and he realizes this, and he will perform with this. I don't think the holdout is a possibility because it is a 4th year. This is his 4th and last year on the rookie deal. So if he does miss games, he will be taking fines. It's not like a franchise tag thing where he just loses money. And so this is like he's going to be penalized if he misses games. He's not going to miss any games. He wants the next contract. He wants to get paid with the big boys. And if he wants to be one of the highest paid running backs, which I imagine every running back in this upcoming free agent class wants to, you better be the best running back in the league. You better be close to it. And I think Leonard Fournette is really going to try hard enough to do that. He's going to be an absolute monster this year. I just don't see him being a bust. I think RB15 is way too low. I think he will be finishing top 10 easily again. I know the Chris Thompson thing, I mean, that is a good point, but he's only going to be in there for catching passes. And if the
But that's
Jags,
the problem.
if the Jags want to win games, the defenses will know, like, hey, Chris Thompson's in the game. It's going to be a pass play. He's not – that coaching staff is not smart enough, like the Bill Belichick, to be able to pull that off. So if they want to make sure that they are not being sold out on the passing game with Chris Thompson there, they need to make sure that they get Leonard Fournette involved as well.
I mean, I think that no matter what, that offense is. I mean, they're going to finish bottom half of the league, and they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And I think that no matter what, even if you say that Chris Thompson is going to be the primary pass catching back, so I just think that I mean, even if it doesn't cut all of this passing work out, it's going to cut at least 75% of it, in my opinion, at least 50% of it. Even if it's 50%, that still takes away 60 points of PPR, and that puts him outside of the top 12. So once again, we disagree on this one, but I do think Leonard Fournette is a sure bust for me this year. So that's going to take us to our last bust of this video, and that's going to be Nick's second one. Who do you got for this one? Please don't be a bad one.
This one is absolutely going to anger some people when they hear me say this.
Oh, no.
But it is time. It is time for Julio Jones to pass the torch down.
Wow.
It is time. Calvin Ridley is going to overtake Julio Jones this year. It's going to be the same thing with Godwin and Mike Evans, what they did last year. It is time for the Julio Jones era to start coming to an end. Julio Jones is currently being drafted as wide receiver 5, 12th overall. Wide receivers who are falling behind him. Kenny Golladay being drafted as wide receiver 7, who is an absolute stud. He finished wide receiver 5 last year. He's being drafted 25th overall. Mike Evans is wide receiver 8. He's being drafted 26th overall. DJ Moore, wide receiver 9, overall 30. Godwin, wide receiver 6, overall 19. Ridley is overtaking him. I'm planting my flag in there, and I'm chaining myself to this flag, and no one can take me down from it. But Ridley is taking him over, and he's being drafted as wide receiver 16, 43 overall. So my biggest thing is Ridley. It's time. Julio. Last year, he only had 6 touchdowns. His whole career has been questioned by how many yards can someone possibly get without scoring touchdowns. And I just like 6 touchdowns is not enough for a wide receiver 5 to begin with. I don't care how many yards, how many catches you get. You need more than 6 touchdowns for the 5th overall receiver. 2019 was his worst season since 2013. And that's, to me, that shows decline. He was down almost 200 yards from his year before. And the year before that, the last 2 years, it was a decline, really, and he dropped 200 yards. But the 3 years ago, that was kind of hard to repeat. It was like 1,600 yards, so I understand the decline there. But another year, it was down to 1,200 yards last year. So if he was down to 1,200 yards last year, I see that declining continuing. It's time for him to pass the torch on to Calvin Ridley. His reign of being one of the greatest receivers of this decade, of this era, it's over. This era is over. It's Ridley's show now.
Yeah, I do see your point. I was surprised when you said Julio, and I think a lot of people are going to disagree, but I think it is time that he kind of steps down as it's starting to turn into the Calvin Ridley show. And I still think Julio is going to be a viable receiver, but he's not going to be the top 5 receiver that he once was. And in Dynasty, he's even worse. So I think at this point, he's going to just continue to drop off as he gets older. He's hit the age apex of 32 years old, I believe. So I think it's just time. And I think that is a pretty hot take for you, but I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to disagree with that when they first see it. But I think I bring up some valid points on why he will be a bust for this year. I think top 5 is way too high for him.
Right. So that's going to do it for our bust video of 2020. If you like this video, if you got some knowledge from this video, go give it a like. Leave a comment. Maybe we'll do a part 2 with some more busts with Wyatt involved. But next time you see us after this video, we'll have Wyatt involved with us. I think we're going to be doing a bounce back episode, so keep your eye out for that. And if you liked it, go like it. Go give us a subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.
Draft Clyde. That's for Wyatt.
That one's for you, Wyatt.